Our scripture reading this morning will come out of the book of Mark, chapter 9, verses 35. Mark 9:35. And he sat down, called the 12 disciples over to him, and said, "Whoever wants to be first must take last place and be the servant of everyone else."
It's been a while since I've gone back to Mark, since we spent so much time in Mark a couple of years ago, but what a great passage this morning we have before us, Mark 9 and verse 35, to be servant of all. So we begin our lesson, just want to remind you of a couple of things. There is a youth devotional this Saturday night, and I believe it's here at the building. I saw Anthony a little bit ago, but I've lost him now. Anyway, so remember that, but also especially remember not this Saturday, but the next Saturday on March 14th, there will be a special Family Matters, and we have a man, Dr. Paul from India, who is coming, and he's done work with Ruth and Elmo in the past, and we're considering supporting his work in India, and he's going to be relating some of the things that they do with the school and the preaching, the churches over there, the orphanages, and so forth like that, and we'd love for everyone to come out and support that effort. So that's going to be on March 14th. We'll mention again next week as well, but it's important that we think about times like this and opportunities we have in other parts of the world as well. And so we're thankful to have Dr. Paul coming our way, and certainly want to glean from him some good ideas. I think through the years, when we talk about evangelism in the church, especially evangelism training for Christians in the church, it has seemed to focus more toward the theoretical. We focus on methods and studies and topics and answering questions and opening lines that we might use with people. We have canned lines prepared to answer this issue or that issue. We know the verses. We know the answers. We know the goal. We just don't know the people. That's the problem that we face. We are now 2 months into our 2020 vision. And I hope that everyone has been praying for and engaging people in their sphere of influence. I hope that you've been putting people on your prospect list. And, it's the 1st of March now. If you haven't already filled in the March blank, go ahead and fill in the March blank today if you can. And I want you to truly focus on those people, praying for those people, looking for opportunities. Let me take that back. Making opportunities to talk to them about the gospel. Sometimes we think evangelism is something that is so natural that it just happens. It doesn't. Evangelism ought to be so natural to us as Christians that we make it happen. And if it's not that natural to us, then we need to be working on our faith and our trust in God. Les, I appreciate the songs that you're singing this morning about heaven and how it should make every one of us feel. And it ought to make us want to let everyone around us who is lost to know those same words, to sing those same words with the same joy and the same love and the same expectation of heaven. And so that's what we're seeking to do. It wasn't long ago I accessed the religious statistics for the city of Brighton. If you've never done that, maybe you want to go check that out. But according to the U.S. Census, roughly 49% of Americans are Protestant adherents. Now, understand they're going to throw evangelical Protestants and mainline Protestants as well as even the church in that group. 49% of the U.S. population at large adheres to some sort of what they would call Protestantism. In Brighton, it's less than 10%. When we talk about the U.S. nationally somewhere around 18% of Americans claim no religion at all. They're nothing. They're atheist, agnostic, pragmatists, whatever they want to call themselves. They don't adhere to any particular religion. When we come to Brighton, that number jumps to over 70%. 70% of citizens in Brighton do not claim any religion at all. Some look at that number and they say we live in a very secular-minded society, and our culture is hostile to the Word of God, that nobody wants to hear the gospel. And I think a lot of Christians look at those numbers and say, well, that just means that no one loves God, no one cares about God. But others of us look at that number and we see a wellspring of opportunity. We see opportunities to take the Word of God to a world that either is not acquainted with Him or does not know Him, or maybe they're antagonistic toward Him, and we have this opportunity. And so the question comes to each one of us, because we've got to answer it for ourselves, is the question, are you discouraged by the irreligious nature of Brighton, Colorado and surrounding communities, or are you encouraged by them because they present great opportunities? In the past, I've used the old adage when it comes to evangelism that we are looking for a needle in the haystack. If we could just find that one needle in the haystack, and after looking at those statistics, I've got to change my mind. We're not looking for a needle in a haystack, brethren. We're looking for a needle in a needle stack. They're all around us. Most of the people you meet that you do not know have no religious affiliation at all. None. Think about it. You don't have to unteach denominational doctrine. You don't have to unteach a religion that is corrupt. You simply have to introduce them to a God that loves them and wants them to be with Him for an eternity. We are looking for a needle in a needle stack in what a tremendous age of opportunity that we live in. Right now, most people we may say, well, they just don't want to hear the gospel. But I think with the right approach and with the right way, we can actually open their hearts to the possibility of God. The problem is that most atheists and irreligious people view Christianity with a high degree of skepticism. It used to be that those that were non-religious and atheists still looked at Christianity in a positive light. Pew Research did a survey last spring, and they asked the question about declining religious impact in American culture. Very high degree number of people across the spectrum agreed that religion was having less and less of an effect on American culture. I think we would have to answer that same way, wouldn't we? That religion appears not to be having as much influence as it once did. But in that same survey, 71% of atheists who answered that question were glad that the church was not having as much influence. They're happy about it. In fact, in that same survey, 70% of people who answered, of the atheists who answered, said that the church and Christianity does more harm in history than good. It does more harm. When people say that, they often cite such things as the Crusades, religious persecution. They talk about how the church at times was stealing people's lands or taking people's lands. And certainly I can look at history and read in the books and see that those who were doing so in the name of Christ pretended to be the church. But what I also understand is that their actions were a corruption of Christianity. And then when you stick to the ideals of goodness, compassion, and kindness, it builds hospitals, orphanages, shelters for the impoverished. It raises people out of their dire straits and dire needs and sets them on a path of success if they desire. You see, those are the principles that come straight from God. And it doesn't matter what organizations adhere to those principles, they're still God's principles. And when they do things in God's name, when they do kindness and compassion and mercy and love and protecting the weak and standing up for what is right, then God is honored in those moments. So this leads to a need for Christians, for us, to show kindness, compassion, love, and forgiveness to people. Look, if the average person on the street expects Christians to be judgmental, uncaring, self-absorbed, closed off from those who are dirty and unclean and sinners, then when Christians publicly and purposefully and selflessly demonstrate the opposite, it causes some to reassess their view of Christians. In other words, it's just like what Jesus was saying in Mark 9 and verse 35. If any would be first, he must be last of all and servant of all. It's almost like Jesus, speaking to his disciples in the first century, we're sitting with us here today in the 21st century, telling us the same thing. Serving others will give an opportunity to hear God. So, with that in mind, this morning I want to share with you some seed ideas of how we might practice servant evangelism, what we might do in this life, in this world, to change people's lives, to turn our busy hands into working hands. That's what I want to think about. Our hands can be busy doing a lot of things that don't bring people to Christ, that don't draw us closer to God, that just allow life to go further, forward and forward and forward. That's all it is. But if we take those busy hands and we put them to work for God's work, my hope is that in the seeds that I give you this morning, that you will look at these ideas, that you will be inspired by them, and that you will plant them in your own life. Put legs on them. Turn them into a great ministry and show people that the Brighton Church of Christ wants to help our community be a better place through the love of Jesus. Ultimately, we all know that the love of Jesus is what is going to make this world a better place. And so we want to change it one corner at a time. And this is our corner. This is where we are. And here's where we have an opportunity to change people's minds about God's. So if you like one or two of these ideas or these seeds that we're planting this morning, make that your mission. Write it down. Take them home. Recruit others to join you and expand on them. Modify them. Make them your own. And make them work by putting your hand to the plow. The first one, I got ahead of myself on the slides, so you probably already know what it is. Carry groceries. Look, as more and more grocery stores stop carrying groceries to the car, especially for those who are handicapped and elderly, what if a group of volunteers could offer this service at local stores? Go in and get permission at King Soopers from the manager. Hey, can I see you let the Boy Scouts set up out here and sell popcorn, and the girls are selling their cookies. Can we set up a booth and offer to help people put their groceries in the car? We're not selling it. It's free service. Put a little sign up there. It says something like Simple Servant on it, and we're just offering to take people's groceries to their car. Some people may say no, but I guarantee you some of them will say, yes, please. How simple is that? That doesn't mean that when you're walking to the car with him, you start preaching to him about the decaying effects of our society around us and while it's crumbling around us, and you're part of the problem, but if you'll study the Bible with me, then we can all go to heaven. No, it means you take their groceries to the car. And they might say something like, this is so nice of you. Why are you doing this? Then you can say, I'm simply a servant of Christ, and I want people to know the love of Jesus in our community. You don't have to go any further than that. Maybe you have a little card that says Simple Servant on the front like this, and maybe on the back it just says Brighton Church of Christ and an address. And you hand that to him when you walk away. Seems pretty simple. Maybe you could get a group of 4 or 5 of you together on the same day and meet down at King Super and do that. Be sure and get permission from the manager, or Walmart, or Safeway, or wherever you want to try that out. Here's another idea. It kind of plays off the same one as the rain escort. Rain is supposed to start, around 4 o'clock this afternoon, and snow around 6 o'clock this afternoon. Maybe it was a Saturday, though, and it's 9 o'clock in the morning on Saturday, and it's raining and it's drizzling. Go to the same place, King Soopers, Walmart's, with one of those big golf umbrellas and offer to walk people to their cars. Wear clothes that you don't mind getting wet, shoes you don't mind getting wet, and hold that umbrella over them as they walk to the car. Do you think that would be helpful? And you get there and you simply hand them a card that says simply servant or a simple servant. Or maybe it's a card you make up on your own. It doesn't have to be, my ideas. That's the whole point here. These are just ideas I'm throwing out. You take them, you make them your own, you make them better. What if we did something for our community, like a park cleanup? Listen, we've got around 25 parks in the city of Brighton, and we have a parks department here, and they're paid pretty well to go around and keep things clean and beautified. But do you think they would appreciate volunteers coming and helping, picking up trash, or after a big storm, when limbs are laying on the ground and leaves are everywhere, and you simply go out and get permission and help? Or along those same lines, maybe park beautification. Maybe a new flower bed here or a new park bench there. Or the equipment that's starting to look a little run down. Might need some repair or a new paint job. Talk with city officials. Talk with the Parks and Rec department. Listen, here's one of the things I've mentioned this before, but when it comes to millennials and Generation Z, one of the most important things to them about their church, about the one that they're going to be part of, is they want to see it making an impact on the community outside these four walls. So let's get out there and make an impact. Maybe it's beyond that. Maybe it's something like a Good Samaritan work. Maybe it's something you can do. Knock doors. You don't hear me say that very often, do you? Go door knocking. But go door knocking, and when they open the door, say, hey, we're just servants of Christ in your neighborhood, and just want to know, do you have some gutters that need to be cleaned out? All right, I noticed after the storm you got a bunch of limbs in your yard. Can I pick that up for you? What is it that you can do? Maybe, hey, I've got this squeegee here, some Windex. Could I wash the outside of your windows? Now, don't offer to come in their house. A lot of times people find that very intrusive. So don't even offer that. Look, I can wash the outside of your windows. Or, just offer to do something to help them out. You say, well, that's going to take a lot of time. Yeah. But the time you're giving now will give them a lot more time in eternity to enjoy forever, wouldn't it? I mean, we got to put things in perspective. We are working for Christ. How much time is too much time to work for Christ? Right? Now, you may do this, and then they come out and they say, man, we really appreciate you doing that. Can I give you $5? Say, no, ma'am, or no, sir. It's not anything like that. We just want you to know the love of Christ. In fact, do you have any friends or neighbors or relatives that might also need their gutters cleaned? You see, you're meeting people that you probably would never meet before. And if the problem isn't that we don't, we know the answers, right? We know what the scriptures say. We know how to tell someone what to do to be saved. But we don't know are the people. And this is helping us get a foot in the door, as it were, to get to know people. And so we leave a little simple servant card with them and ask them. Now, listen, if they're there and they say, Sonny or Missy or whatever they're calling you, maybe they're elderly, I don't know. They say, hey, I've got a light that's out in my washroom. Would you mind helping me change that? And that's a call you're going to have to make on your own. If you're with someone, I would recommend before you go into anyone's house like that, have someone with you. It's just safer for you and for them as well. And go in and change the light bulb if you can. So things like that. Let's move it from just your neighborhood. I thought about walking through my neighborhood with this squeegee on a stick and scrubbing windows. Something like that. But what about this? What about our schools? School playgrounds. Get permission from the school officials to help clean up the playgrounds. Usually that's left to the maintenance crew, and there's always something for the maintenance crew to be doing. And it seems like playground trash pickup isn't always on the top of the list. So maybe we go in and we clean up some playgrounds or spruce up the place a bit. See what they can do. Maybe it's equipment that needs repair or needs painting or something like that. Maybe they could use a bench to sit on or something like that. That's certainly something that we could do. One thing that I've seen in a couple of places is volunteers from the community going to especially elementary schools and starting a garden. Some of you garden. Some of you are not deaf to plant and carnate like I am. But what if they could section off a part of their playground for you to plant some flowers and maybe a few vegetables and have the kids come and help tend that garden, watch the plants grow, and then when harvest time rolls around, they get to pick beans or maybe something more exciting like strawberries. But man, what a great opportunity and just to be there. And the school would know, of course, what you were doing. What about nursing homes? Let's see. We've got three buildings going that way, and all of them are nursing facilities or assisted living facilities of some sort. I mean, that's basically our backyard right there. Volunteer at nursing homes to encourage residents. Maybe you make up a welcome baskets to give to residents. Maybe it has a quilt in it or a blanket, a throw that they can sit in their chair with, and snacks. Maybe it's got a bird feeder and some bird seed that you can put right outside their window so they can watch the birds when they sit there. Look, we know that nursing home residents are lonely people most oft times, and what if we had the opportunity to go and sit with them? Or sit with them when their family can't. And it's not just an eye to them, while we're serving them, which is a great thing, but it's also, it's with an eye to the workers of the nursing home and to their family members and to other families that come in and see you volunteering to help someone. And they're asking questions. Why do you do this? I'm simply a servant of Jesus Christ. And I want people to know the love of Christ. Get with the activities directors. Most nursing homes have an activities director, and they're always looking for activities. When I was in Texas, I was working as a chaplain at a nursing home as well, and our activities director there, they had to have a certain number of activity hours a month, and they were struggling to get those to get activities done. And they longed for volunteers to come in and play games with them. Or maybe you play a guitar and you can sing some Johnny Cash. And you can go in and play and sing Johnny Cash for them. Man, they love that. And it's no skin off your nose, as it were. And you get to help them. Maybe get a group of Christians to go and host a devotional time of singing and prayer with nursing home residents. There's a lot that you can do. That is a wellspring. We talked about school playgrounds. What about the school staff? Maybe you could do something. Get permission from the school officials to leave maybe gifts in the teachers' lounges on different campuses around town. Snacks, gift cards, coffee packets, tea packets, maybe bottles of water with the little flavoring packets next to it, so if they want to grab one and make some lemonade out of it or something like that, they could do that. Ask some of the teachers what their classroom wish list is and see if there's something you can do, kind of an adoptive classroom type deal. Maybe you can help them out in getting some of those things done. Or maybe you could get a crew together and show up on a Tuesday morning and offer to wash the teachers' cars while they're inside teaching. You wash a car and do it for free. Why are you doing that? Simply servants of Christ. We want you to know the love of Christ in this community. What about hospital waiting rooms? here's an idea. It's pretty simple. Just get a basket, says Brighton Church of Christ on it, or compliments of Brighton Church of Christ on it. Put some snacks in the basket and leave it in the waiting rooms. Have you ever sat in a waiting room during a surgery, or when someone's in surgery, or maybe they're having a procedure done, and maybe it's surgery waiting, maybe it's ICU waiting, and you think, man, I wish I had a pack of chips. Well, they could have a pack of chips. If you get together with some people and you make sure that you put a basket out there and put snack crackers or mints and gum, sometimes people just, they want a mint or a piece of gum to chew on. And maybe you leave some water, a bottle of water with some of those flavoring packets with that one too. Compliments of the Brighton Church of Christ. I would say if that's one that you think is good to do and you're going to do that one, keep the baskets full. And that's going to be the difficult thing, because depending on how many people are in the waiting room, that could empty out in a day. It could empty out in a week. So you'd have to go back and check often to make sure that it's there, because you'd sure hate to sign that says compliments of Brighton Church of Christ and it's nothing. Nothing is, we're giving you nothing, and remember us, and they will remember that. So, but they'll also remember if they got it. You can do the same thing maybe at doctor's offices. Maybe put out the same type of deal. Maybe even for the doctor's office, they always have those magazines out there. Maybe you could find some old copies of Think magazine, or some good, an old gospel journal or gospel advocate, and put those out on their table too if they allow it. Obviously, you want to get permission on those. Public servants. Man, we can't say enough about what police officers and firefighters and trash collectors and first responders and hospital auxiliary, and we're served by so many different people in our community, and simply to have an appreciation, get permission from departments to bring snacks and thank you notes to the station personnel when they come in. Compliments again of the Brighton Church of Christ. Why are you doing this? Well, we're just simply servants of Christ, and we want you to know the love of Christ. Maybe it's beyond that. Maybe we supply public servants with things like bears and stuffed animals for when they deal with children under duress. If a police officer has to make a domestic call and there's little children in the house and he's waiting for CPS to come out and take care of the children, and the children are scared to death and frightened, how nice it would be to be able to pull a bear or a stuffed animal or something out and let the child have it. That's theirs. Or a firefighter who's fighting a house that's burning and the children are waiting over on the side watching every toy that they have go up in flames, and yet there's this new one they have. It's the bear that they're holding on to in that moment of trial. Bottled water. Maybe you can take bottled water. This kind of goes back to the store thing. You can sit maybe outside of King's Super and have bottled water on ice. It'd be great if you took the label off and put a new label on that said Brighton Church of Christ on it, but that's another story. And people are coming out the store, and it's a hot day, here in Colorado. It's 80 degrees or 85 degrees. This might work better in Texas, where it's 105 or 110 when they're walking out, and their soles of their shoes are melting into the asphalt when they walk across it. But still, just a complimentary bottle of water. You're passing out to people, hey, have a bottle of water on us. Simple servants, that's all we are. Maybe instead of setting up at a grocery store, you set up at the park across the street, near the jogging trail, when people are running, and offer joggers a free bottle of water as they finish their run. What about the laundromat? We all loved, I guess probably at some point in every one of our lives, we had to go to a laundromat, right? Between washer and dryer, or, hadn't been able to afford it yet. And so we go and we do our laundry at the laundromat. And that is a huge ordeal, right? You go in and you wait. First of all, you got to wait until you're wearing the very last stitch of clothing that you've got, right? Because you want to get it all washed at one time. But that means you're carrying 8 to 10 laundry baskets into the laundromat. What if we were there to help carry laundry baskets in, filled with clothes? What if we were there, with loose change in our pockets, and they say, "You got change for $1?" Sure do. Here you go. What if while their clothes were washing and drying and they were sitting there, they had someone to talk to? Or when that dryer buzzer went off, they had someone to fold clothes with them. Couldn't you just fold clothes with them, put them in their laundry baskets, and help them out? I mean, if you were in that situation where you had to go to the laundromat, wouldn't you appreciate someone that was volunteering like that? Think of the connections you can make and the conversations you could have. Or the gas station. Who washes your windshield when you get gas now? You do. Who pumps your gas nowadays? You do. But what if you got permission from the Come and Go or the Loaf and Jug or wherever it was to sit out there and pump people's gas for them? Can I get that for you? And then while the gas is pumping, you wash their windshield. Right? You see, as the world is becoming more and more disconnected, we've got to fight to connect. Now, those are just some seeds. There's not legs on all of them. You may have other ideas, or maybe this inspired a different idea. You want to go a different way with it. That's great. What I want you to do is plant these seeds and allow them to grow in your life and in the life of the Brighton church so that we can change people's destiny. That's what we're here for. We're not just here to make sure I get to heaven. It's not just about me, myself, and I, right? It's about people. 70% of people in Brighton are not affiliated with any religion. That means 70% of the people in Brighton need God. And if they think that Christianity is not loving, not caring, not serving, not compassionate, that it's just judgmental, what a breath of fresh air you can be just by showing them something different. Simply be a servant. It's just as Jesus said, that he that is going to be first must be last of all and servant of all. This morning, that begins with coming to Christ. And maybe you're one of those that's been on the outside. Maybe you've been disillusioned with Christianity, or maybe you're just now hearing some of the love of Christ and the compassion for the very first time, and you say, I want to be a part of that. Then may I say to you, let nothing stop you. Don't let any hesitation of pride, or maybe you say, well, I just don't know enough, or you say, I'm not good enough, or whatever excuse. Don't let anything stand in your way. Right now is the opportunity that you have to come to him and be baptized for the remission of your sins, so that God in his grace will apply the blood of Christ to your life, and all of those sins will be washed away. Your robes will be washed white in the blood of the Lamb. That's the promise that he gives us. And all it takes is your decision. Nothing stands in your way if you'll come while we stand and while we sing.